Hello and welcome back to the Bird's Eye View podcast. We are here on Monday, March 31st, just after the Toronto Blue Jays split their opening series. It was a story of 4 different games, essentially. I'm your host, Zach Worden, joined as always by Jori Negin-Shecter. And Jori, how are we feeling about the 2-2 Blue Jays?
Yeah, I think we're feeling pretty good, and all things considered. Obviously, would have liked to have won maybe more than 2 out of 2, but I suppose that will have to do, at least when you're talking about starting this season against the Baltimore Orioles, who have big aspirations this season. Now, before we actually get rolling, Zach probably has a sense of what I'm about to do here, but I was hoping to surprise him. But Zach nominated, or maybe not nominated is not the right word, but mentioned this week in a very exciting, influential Canucks in baseball named as an honorable mention. So to celebrate, I wanted to shoot some confetti to celebrate the occasion.
Thank you very
Uh,
much. Thank
a
you.
big celebration there. Anyways, I was really
Now you're
hoping that
going to
was
have
gonna
to clean
work.
that up.
Yeah, I was that was we pushed back recording about 15 minutes. It was me running to the dollar store to grab a balloon to do that. So I
Oh,
wanted to I wanted to
thank you.
surprise him with that.
Thank
So
you.
a big celebration there.
Very appreciated. Thanks
Anyways,
to, yeah, thank you. Thank you.
the cleanup's gonna be a bit of an interesting. We'll deal with that later.
Yes. Thanks. Yeah, thanks for that. Very exciting, very cool to be nominated. I know obviously, what we do here is a big part of that. So yeah, really appreciate that from you. And I think you should be on the list as well. But the list of like 1,000 people.
Uh,
Um, anyways, though, the Blue Jays, very interesting start to the year. Obviously, they come out and they just get hammered on opening day, 12-2. Jose Barrios gets hit around the yard, and then they come back and basically, turn the tables. In the second game, Gossman looks great. Game three, Max Scherzer gets hurt. Richard Lovelady comes in and delivers a performance that gets him DFA'd, and then Chris Bassett looks great in game four. So, it's an interesting start to the year, and I know we're gonna kind of name this episode like overreactions, and I think I like to consider us as like pretty level-headed about things, but I think after 4 games, it's okay to maybe be a little bit dramatic about what happened this weekend. I wonder kind of what is your biggest takeaway from these first 4 games?
my biggest takeaway is that the Blue Jays still don't have enough power on the team, but thank goodness Andres Gimenez is about to go off for 40 bombs this season.
Him and Tyler
Uh,
Heineman, the
and Tyler Heineman
the
also
exact 2 guys that you were going to predict to be
exactly
the team leaders in home runs.
the only 2 guys to go Yahtzee this weekend. Uh, 2 for Andres Gimenez and an incredible bat drop from Tyler Heineman. Yeah, it was. Um, let's just say they were probably lucky to split that pair of games. They got out hit pretty badly. I was in attendance for game one, and they looked a lot like the 2024 Blue Jays. They were getting rocked. Barrios with a very sustainable 60 odd percent home run to fly ball ratio that is definitely going to last the whole season. And the slot throwing pair, Richard Lovelady and Jacob Barnes, making their presence known by proceeding to also get absolutely destroyed. And I believe Yariel also made his first appearance of the season during that game, and I don't think it went very well either. That first game was tough sledding. Things got better as the weekend progressed, obviously, but I mean, giving up what was it? It's like 6 dingers in the first game.
Yeah.
Um, Not how you want to start the season, but cleaned it up quite a bit as the weekend progressed. Really do actually, in all seriousness, am extremely happy with Andres Gimenez. Obviously, the hitting has been really good to start the year in terms of the power. Believe he's hitting under 200, but it's early. But the defense, we saw some really good defense from him too, ranging over from like basically the second base like hole and basically ending up where the shortstop plays up the middle and making a great play. I believe it was in the ninth inning of the game on Sunday. Just an overall really strong weekend from him. And splitting with the Orioles, I'll take it.
Yeah, I mean, grand scheme of things, like splitting with a team that is likely headed for, you know, 85-ish wins. Like I think, you take that. I think the on-field product was, somewhere in the middle of what you would like. I think, obviously the Brio stuff was bad. The Scherzer injury, I think your tweet where, you said that the win or his injury might be the single-handed thing that keeps him from making the playoffs. I think that's realistic. I mean, we saw it. It already cost them one game, right? Because they were in the lead when he comes out, and then they go to Lovelady and Barnes who immediately blow that lead. And so, not having a Ryan Yarbrough type, I know, the Ryan Yarbrough
Should
love
we should we
is out
discuss
there.
this very briefly? I think we should
Oh,
discuss this very briefly. Why do people care about Ryan Yarbrough?
like
Like you and I have
I
been going back and forth on this. Who cares about Ryan Yarbrough?
I get it. I get it that he's good and he was on the roster. So like here's my thoughts on it is like Ryan Yarbrough is traditionally like a 4 ERA pitcher, right? Like
Yeah.
he's not going to
That's
be
even probably a
he's
little bit low.
probably not going to be the guy that he was for the Blue Jays last year in a very short sample size. He throws like 85 and I think, people look at the ERA and what he did last year, and it kind of does blind them a little bit from what he's been over the course of his career. Um, should he have made the opening day roster? Yeah, probably he should have. But is it this huge loss? I mean, it's not a huge difference between him and Mason Fluharty. I think obviously Yarbrough gives you like a little bit of extra length, which would have been nice to have. But I do think that guys like Yarbrough, like there's probably you could go out and sign like 4 or 5 guys who are probably going to give you something similar to what Ryan Yarbrough does.
Like I'm just looking it up right now. And if you want Ryan Yarbrough at home, he's sitting on the Buffalo Bisons in Eric Lauer.
Yeah.
Like the exit velocity numbers are a little different. Yarbrough does generate weaker contact than Lauer does, to say the least. Lauer's lollipop chart, it's a lot of blueberry flavored stuff. Um, Yarbrough is a slop thrower just like the rest of them. I don't get why people care. It's so non relevant in terms of just like how if Ryan Yarbrough is the difference between you being competitive and not, you've got much, much, much bigger issues at play here because
So
he's not even a rotation piece on a bad team. He's a long man reliever and he's a slop guy.
So let's have this discussion because I think it's interesting that the Blue Jays take Richard Lovelady on their opening day roster, and then it takes 2 bad appearances for them to decide to cut bait. Like, if that was all it was going to take, then why was he on the opening day roster?
I guess you felt more comfortable dumping him,
Because he's
and
cheaper to dump than Yarbrough? Is that
that's the only reason I could think, right? Is because with Yarbrough, I don't know what exactly you got from the Yankees. I can't imagine you got more than $1 million. You
he
probably
got
got league
two?
minimum.
He
You
got
got
so,
two.
and if he had made the Jays, he would have gotten 2 million. So it was the same deal, but obviously he was on the team there.
Like, okay, so he gets two. Like, there's your answer right there. I'm not paying Ryan Yarbrough $2 million to play in AAA, and obviously it's going to be kind of a not a two-way deal, um, but like a split deal. He's not going to make $2 million playing for the Bisons, but there's no need if the plan is basically to DFA if need be, because you've got like again, we've got Mason Fluharty set to make his major league debut any day now, right?
Yeah.
Like he's clearly going to be just as capable.
Yeah, it's like the only thing is like Yarbrough would have been perfect for the Scherzer game, right? But in an ideal world, like you're not
But you
having
can't
to
plan.
do
You
that.
can't plan for a Max Scherzer injury on day 3 of the season. It's just not what you're planning for. Obviously,
But
there were some
although
circumstances
I
leading.
will say maybe you could have planned for it because
Like you could have and you couldn't have. Like all the reports were
you
that he was
shouldn't
feeling
have to.
better.
You
No, you
shouldn't
shouldn't
have
have to.
to.
But
Yeah.
you can't dedicate a 26-man spot to the thought that, oh, Max Scherzer is gonna end up hurt in the first week. Because if you've cleared him, if you've got him ready to go, then there's no need to move him, you know? There's no need to work around that.
Well, they bring up Easton Lucas to replace Max Scherzer.
That I don't get. That I
So,
don't get.
well, so I mean, who's better, Easton Lucas or Ryan Yarbrough?
Maybe Ryan Yarbrough, but I don't even think it's really
I
that
think
much of
it's
a
probably
difference.
close, right? So that's
But
probably where they're filling that.
Is Lucas a capable starter? That's my question.
I think so. I thought he looked really good at Buffalo last year. He kind of did like that long relief thing. He had a few starts. Like he's a guy who can start. He's a little bit stretched out. At Buffalo last year. I mean, all right, I guess if you just want to look at his entire AAA numbers from 2024, he had a 2.75 ERA, 3.61 FIP. So obviously there's talent in there. There's skill. And I bet you if you put Ryan Yarbrough in AAA, like I don't know if he's putting up a 2.75 ERA over 68 innings. So it's probably something similar there.
But that's the
And
thing is the 68 innings too. That's not gonna stretch you over any meaningful capacity. Like
yeah,
he's
I
going 4 innings maybe.
I mean, but that's probably what they need him for, right? Like if, in this
So
world,
you're
I
you're,
I
you're piggybacking him with like
with
Rodriguez,
Max
like
Scherzer probably, but I know Scherzer. Like I'm just thinking in the world of Game 3 that
oh,
like
but
if
I'm
they
not
if
even
they had
thinking.
had
I'm
Eason Lucas, but like going forward, I don't know if he's gonna be the starter
No,
or
it
if they're
sounds like
going
he's the
to.
starter. They're not gonna go. It sounds like
He was in the
there was
bullpen yesterday though.
the reports from Keegan Matheson and just a few days ago. Word was that the Jays were really happy with Yariel against the Orioles. I mean, the second time around, obviously. Coming out of the pen, they were like, well, this guy's fastball is going to play at this level. He's going to do this. This is not something we want to mess with. It's not something we want to screw around with. And we want to leave him in the bullpen. Well, who does that leave as your fifth starter right now? Is it Lucas?
I mean,
Like,
is there a world where they just decide Easton Lucas is our long man, we're going to keep Jacob Barnes up for now, and then in case we need him to like eat up in some innings, and then by the time that Scherzer's rotation spot rolls around for game one against the Mets, that they DFA Jacob Barnes and they bring up Eric Lauer to fill that spot?
I guess that's also a possibility. Would you like if you
That's probably what I would do.
yeah, like you don't have the problem is that they don't have enough again, they don't have enough pitching depth to handle these kind of injuries, right? You can handle a 4 or a 5 injury, but when you get into the Scherzer kind of category of guy that you're expecting him to be your number three starter, basically, you don't have a guy to replace that. You need what you really need is you really need Jake Bloss to be ready to go, but he's not, it seems like. But I said in my bold predictions a couple of what was it, a week ago or whatever it may have been, and I was like, Jake Bloss is going to end up with a rotation spot at some point, right? Well,
Didn't take that long.
no, honestly. Obviously, things will get a little bit easier, ideally, come June, July, when you got also like an Alek Manoah in the picture as well. But as things stand right now, they're not built for this.
Yeah, Bloss is scheduled to start tomorrow in Buffalo. So, I mean, obviously he could easily be scratched, but I think that the way that they have operated so far kind of signals that it's not going to be his rotation spot right away. Um, I think he's such an interesting case, like Jake Bloss, just because he, did have the struggles after he sent back to AAA last year. He did have the struggles with the with the Blue Jays in spring training to start, and then he kind of looked better. So I wonder like if he goes out and has one good start at Buffalo, is
Well,
that enough to
like
prove
how
to them?
many,
Like, what do you need
but
to see from him, right?
before or after May 1st, do you think Jake Bloss is on the Major League roster? Because to me, I don't see any reason to feel like it should be after May 1st.
Like
Even that feels really late.
I'm a little like I'm admittedly probably a little bit lower on Jake Bloss than like consensus, but I think probably it will be before. I guess it kind of depends on what happens with Scherzer's meeting with the hand specialist today, right? Like if the hand specialist is like, yeah, your thumb injury is like totally messed up your arm. you're going to be done for, a couple months to figure this out. Because I think Scherzer said that he wants to be 100% before he pitches again, right?
Yeah, which
And
to be fair, like, hard to blame him, right?
yeah, no, 100%. I think that that's probably the right way to approach it. But for a 40-year-old who's thrown as many innings as he has in his career,
What does 100%
what
look
does
like?
100% look like exactly? So we'll kind of see how that plays out. I think Bloss, if he has a good start tomorrow, then I'm we'll probably be a little bit more on board. But like, I mean, for him, I honestly like you watch him pitch, and it's literally just about fastball location. If he locates his fastball at the top of the zone and doesn't let it spray and doesn't let it kind of sink down to the bottom, like he is a good pitcher. But
Yeah.
what he's shown since he's gotten in Toronto is that the fastball location, the fastball command hasn't been consistent enough to be like a major league level pitcher. So, I think we'll watch his start tomorrow, and it'll be interesting to see how things play out there. Maybe he doesn't even get the start. Maybe they do decide that he's going to be their guy on Friday. But I think when you look at like just the way that they're probably going to play it, I would imagine that Lauer maybe makes that start on Friday. Maybe it is Easton Lucas because he is up, but it was weird to me that he would be sitting in the bullpen yesterday if they had told him you're in our rotation.
I just think that they don't have a rotation spot right now, right? It could have been him, it could have been
Four
Yariel
man,
Rodriguez.
4-man rotation in April.
It's who knows what, like, there is no plan here, really, it seems like. It's kind of like, you know, it's kind of just put up a prayer at this point. Is there maybe an external option? Like, I can't think of a team right now that's shopping around anybody. Like, it's too early to be trying to trade for someone. And
And no free
I
agents
mean,
are going to be ready to go.
and even like, I'm trying to think of, like, you missed the window. Excuse me, you missed the window when maybe you would have been able to grab someone off of waivers or something. It feels like there's not a whole lot available to get you over that kind of bridge.
What's Lance Lynn up to?
I mean, you think he's going to be ready to go? He wasn't even signed for spring training, right? He's just
No,
sitting
he's a
around,
free
right?
agent. Yeah, I just pulled up the list of like the free agents who are left. Like Spencer Turnbull, I kind of like Spencer Turnbull. It's intriguing-ish. Was kind of good last year, but again, like they're not going to be ready to go for
No,
Friday.
these guys are at least a month away from being ready to go, right? I
Yeah.
mean, like you're kind of in a pickle here to say the least.
Yariel is interesting because he looked so good yesterday.
He looked
Did
so bad in game
he
one.
was really bad in game one, but I wonder like the approach difference between game one and game four, like kind of what the mentality was there. But
Well,
like dude
they
was
talked
touching
about it.
98 yesterday.
Yeah, they talked about it on the broadcast, the fastball reliance. He went really heavy on the fastball in his second outing for the Jays. I wonder if that's something that's sustainable if you kind of move to the rotation. Like you're not going to
Mhm.
be touching 98. That's the
I mean,
question.
he sat 96 yesterday through 10 fastballs, top 98, like he looked like it was electric. Like that's kind of what you expected from him, right?
Yeah.
Where he's like, pitching in high leverage and letting his stuff play up. And
Yeah.
yeah, like to me, that's going to be where he's at his best, right? Like we saw him last year, and it's kind of funny because like it was the same issue as like Jake Bloss, where it's like just the command is kind of the thing, right? Yeah,
Spray
like
and pray, you know?
yeah, you have no idea where that's going, but like I think it's tough to me to like look at. I guess you could move him back, and he's supposedly built up, but now he's thrown two shorter outings. So what's that kind of look like for him if he's going to get ready to start? Um, it might just end up being Easton Lucas, but I think if I watched Yariel Rodriguez pitch yesterday, I would not want to touch that.
No.
I would want to leave him and be like, hey, we've had like some bullpen issues already, so let's just let that play and leave you where you are, and we'll figure that out with the other options that we have.
Yeah. I think that there's two ways to look at this. You can either kind of be like, we've got what we've got and we don't want to mess with a good thing. And let's just see what we can do some piggybacking, and just kind of hope that whoever takes
Dude,
that
just
spot
just
does
please have
okay.
Scherzer back after 2 weeks.
There's that. The other option is to And in some respects, it's the easier option. It's to just slide Yariel into that spot because technically
Yeah.
speaking, like you said, technically stretched out, technically a starter, right? Like that might actually be the option they end up going with just because of the fact that he's just able to do it. Like he of all the guys available, he's probably the most capable starter, but
Yeah.
he's the best pitcher of that group, and you probably want him in more of a spot that he can be important to your team rather than as like a rotation filler guy.
Let's get crazy, Jeff Hoffman. Let's do the
Well, like
starter
that's
thing.
another thing. Like I get why he's not starting. The shoulder stuff, like they probably aren't comfortable with that. But if they talked about a guy starting, like maybe let this guy like opener for you guys. Like I don't know, could be kind of fun. Probably not gonna happen. In fact, I would say absolutely won't happen, but
He looked
could
he,
be
he
fun.
looked good yesterday too. First
I
career Blue
think
Jays
that was
save. He
really
got the
fun.
light show.
Oh yeah, that was
Um,
fun. I wish he had a better song though. The song was kind of did you see there was a clip floating around of
yeah.
his entrance on Twitter, and I wish he went with something a little bit more Edwin Diaz adjacent or even Jordan Romano adjacent. Or
The
maybe it's
Romano
just
one was fire, admittedly.
it was so sick. I don't know. Well, as you start to, as Hoffman becomes an automatic save and you're in the
Yeah.
building, maybe like you start to get a little feel for what the song is, and the song starts to associate itself with like a pre-victory song, maybe then we'll talk about kind of if it's the right song or not.
Yeah. Let's talk about some of the other starters. Obviously, I think the Scherzer stuff, the Love Lady stuff, the Barnes stuff, like I think if there's like one negative reaction that you want to have from the opening weekend is holy crap, that's bad. That's really bad, and that's a bad spot. And I think that we can maybe leave it there because we'll get some answers in the coming days, but it's less than ideal as we sit here today. Gossman looked good. Who do you want to talk about? Gossman, Bassett, Barrios. I think,
Let's start with Bassett because I think of everybody that we saw, he was the guy that was the most impressive. That
yeah.
was like vintage Bassett right there. Believe it was 8 hits he scattered, but nothing really damage wise.
The
Seven
only
punchies, I
run
believe,
scored was a pass
was a
ball.
pass ball. Like that was
And then Tyler Heineman made up for it with the bomb.
exactly like that was one of the best Chris Bassett outings just in terms of almost like in terms of leverage, because they really needed the whoever was going to obviously start, given the bullpen, they needed a long outing from Bassett, and that's kind of what Bassett does. He's able to give you a lot of innings. He's able to go deep in ball games, throw a lot of pitches, even early in the season. And he's a capable guy in terms of just having a million different things to throw at you, right? And he did exactly that. He just nothing was particularly incredible in terms of, the metric stuff plus and whatnot. It was same old, but his bag of tricks, he's just got so much stuff and he just had him off balance all game and he looked really, really good.
Yeah, seven punchies too. Seven punchies through
That's
six.
big. That's really big. Like that's not the Chris Bassett that you tend to see.
No, I think like he kind of had the swing and miss going too. Like he got 12 whiffs in the game. Um, So, like it really was, a really impressive outing from him. I think, after he kind of had like so many struggles in the second half of last year, especially against like this Orioles team that's so left-handed heavy, right? Like for him to be able to kind of come out and put together that performance was really important. And the cutter and the curveball were really good. And obviously his sinker, kind of did its thing in limiting hard contact. So I think for what they needed, like that was probably the biggest singular performance from a pitcher. Obviously, Gosman was great, but I think that Bassett was probably the best pitcher that we saw
Yeah,
this
again,
weekend.
like just really happy. Now, I mean, I'm just pulling up Gosman's line as well because he had a good game too. Obviously, same idea, limiting damage more or less. 4 punch outs, 1 walk, 2 earned runs. I'm trying to remember I don't know. It's only been 4 games and everything's already mushing together, man. Remind me again. That was the Apple TV.
That was the Apple TV game,
Yes, that
yeah.
was the Friday night. The City Connect. What are they calling it again? The
City
lights out
Connect
night or
Friday. Yeah,
yeah,
I
they're
don't
City
know.
Connect Friday, but they have a name for it. The like the lights out or whatever it may be. I don't know. Needless to say, I mean, happy that he's. I mean, hopefully back to being himself. 4 punch outs is 4 punch outs. You maybe would like a little bit more swing and miss from him, but just you know, happy that Kevin Gosman is by all accounts healthy.
Yeah, the velo was good too, which was big.
That's big. That was huge. I think it was 96 he was touching, right?
Yeah, I think he sat 95.9, so yeah, basically 96. But yeah, he was good. Obviously, he had kind of like teased the slider, the cutter, the slutter, if you will. And he threw it 11 times, which is pretty significant, I guess. Like he's not necessarily just the two pitch guy, or he wasn't just a two pitch guy, and it didn't get a single whiff, the pitch, but it'll be interesting to see kind of how he continues with that. And just like the fastball got a ton of whiffs, which is really important, and the splitter got like none. So I don't know if they were like sitting splitter or how that works, but no, good to see him back. Good to see a good outing. I think, if it wasn't for Bassett, I think we might be sitting here talking about him as as the highlight of the weekend.
Yeah, I think just in general, like from what we saw, obviously Barrios had a tough outing. Obviously Scherzer had a tough outing, but all things considered, the starters did as they were asked. They went out there, they even Barrios to a certain extent, he pitched into the fifth, right? So like for all intents and purposes, he chewed as well, I believe, right?
He
Like
threw five, yeah.
yeah, like you got your innings out of these guys, and that's kind of what the Jays are asking for. You're not asking for, 4 or 5 home runs against in the case of Barrios, but you can get something like the Bass, you can get something like the Gosman, and the Jays can win those games. This episode of the Bird's Eye View podcast is brought to you by BioSteel. Use code Bird's Eye View at checkout for 20% off your order at biosteel.ca. Again, that's code Bird's Eye View at checkout for 20% off your order. For all your high performance hydration needs, visit biosteel.ca. Thank you again to BioSteel for sponsoring today's episode.
Bullpen circle of trust after the weekend.
Brandon Little. Brandon Little's in
Brendan
there.
Little looks really good. Interesting stuff from him, just kind of having the strikeouts there. Like he had a 40% K rate. Obviously, the lat thing that forced him out of the game, a little scary, but we're okay for now. He obviously came back and threw again. Sandlin, I'm fine with him being in the circle of trust. The command wasn't great. He had like a 30, he walked 30% of the guys that he faced, but didn't give up any runs. So I think if you're talking like circle of trust, like Little, Hoffman, Jimmy was great. Sandlin, you can toss him in there.
Yariel, I think, gets a nod
Yariel,
there.
Yariel is interesting because he had like the really good performance and the really bad one. But if
I
he's
think
gonna
that I
be if
think
he's
of
gonna
the
be chucking
upside,
98, I think I'm
then
comfortable with
yeah,
him.
I
Yeah,
think well, like that, who that looks a lot like? Looks a lot like Jimmy. And obviously the way that they go about it is a little bit different. Jimmy obviously is more of a breaking ball than a splitter guy, but those are like two guys that are kind of two sides of the same coin to a certain extent.
yeah. And then Chad Green like gave up a couple homers. We'll see. Like I think that we said in our season preview episode that he's going to start the year in the circle of trust, but I think the leash there is a little bit shorter. I don't know if like Yariel is maybe taking his spot as like a high leverage guy. I think if you look at like the pecking order in the bullpen, like Green may have slid like a spot or two
Yeah.
this weekend.
Yeah, we'll see. I think that you're gonna get a better idea maybe in a week or two of this goes for everything, obviously, but you're gonna get a real idea in a week or two of kind of what the situation is as far as the pitching goes. In terms of the pecking order, obviously, you mentioned in terms of the rotation pecking order, even to a certain extent, like it's all sort of
It's been
filtering
it's
around
been
right
four
now.
games and most of these guys have pitched once or twice. So it's not there's a reason why we're titling this Overreactions.
Yeah. Do we want to talk a little bit about the hitting because we've talked a lot about the
Yeah.
pitching now. Um, the guys that I gave Gimenez some love, but Bo, do we want to give Bo some love? Because that was a big series for him, and I feel like he needed that.
Yeah, I think most like you talk about most impressive performances from the weekend, like pitching wise, Bassett Gosman for sure. Hitting wise, like you already talked about Gimenez, but Bo, like I mean, dude, even in he started out, I think he was like 0 for in the first couple games, right? Like he was hitting the ball hard, but just kind of getting out, and then all of a sudden, he goes 4 for 4 in game two, and then even the 1 for 4 yesterday, like he just looked really good. He was hitting everything hard. Like he just looked like the Bo that we know, right? And really important for him. We said it in spring training, but of course that's spring training. So for him to carry that over is really great. And I think like what are we thinking in terms of like season long stats? Like it's gonna be pretty good, I think.
It should be better than it was last year, which is a low floor to a low bar to jump over,
Yes.
but any positive output from him is a major improvement on the situation last time around.
Are we on AL hits leader watch?
He's currently tied for the lead, I believe.
Currently tied for the lead with Willie Abreu and Tyler Soderstrom, who
Yeah.
neither of
Uh,
them I'm certain not
yeah.
super
You're
scared
telling
of
me you're
either of
not
them.
believing Tyler Soderson's 571 BABIP right now?
Well, Willie Abreu is 7 for 10.
Um,
That's
I'd like to
sustainable, right?
actually, I would say that's probably correct. What is Bo Bichette's BABIP right now?
467.
Yeah,
So it's not even like
that's
it's good,
it's
and
it's not even that high. That's like Chris Colabello territory.
I mean he didn't strike out, so his BABIP is his average. Or yeah, he didn't homer,
Well, that's big. Is also the I mean the homer obviously you'd like to see some homers, but he no punch outs.
no punch outs.
Like that's big. That's huge for this.
Yeah,
Like to obviously this guy is loves to swing and miss. But to go 4 games without striking out, I believe his strikeout rate ballooned last year, if I'm not mistaken, right?
a
So
little bit.
I mean for the biggest thing was the was his power was zapped.
Actually, it didn't. He went down.
It went his strikeout rate went down.
Yeah,
Oh, interesting. Perhaps that was something positive to take away from last season.
it went down
Much
by
to
point one
consider.
of a percent.
Okay, maybe I take that back. Listen, I don't have the Fangraphs page open. I can't have every
Sorry,
single
I'm
number
sorry. I know I'm
memorized.
ripping through it here. But no, like
Ooh.
really great weekend too. And I think what
That's the big one.
the defense was fine as well. Like I don't think there was any plays where I was like, oh, that's not great. But obviously Gimenez kind of stole the show defensively. Um, it's kind of funny when you look at like defensive numbers after 4 games. Um, what would you expect for defensive runs saved for Blue Jays this weekend?
Um,
I'll tell you, everybody is a zero, and then there are five players who have either a 1 or a -1.
well, the plus one of them's going to be Gimenez.
No, he's
Really?
-1.
That is surprising. I can't imagine how that. I guess I don't even know why.
Defensive stats are fake.
Um, who? Oh, Springer's got a plus one right now. He made an unbelievable. He made that unbelievable catch in center.
No, he's at a 0.
Is Alan Roden at a plus one? He made a
Alan
nice
Roden
catch.
is at a +1.
There we go. He made a nice
But Alan
grab.
Roden is at a +1 in right field, not left field, where he made the diving catch.
Defensive stats are fake. All right, give me the lowdown. Give me the lowdown.
All right, Roden +1 in right field, Santander +1 in left field.
That's gonna
Don't know,
last.
don't know how. Santander -1 in right field. Bo -1, Gimenez -1. Everybody else is 0.
Defensive stats are fake. Defensive stats. One day we'll come up with a defensive stat that's actually a defensive stat.
If you're looking at OAA, Ernie Clement +1, Alan Roden +1 in left field,
Hmm.
and then Springer -1 in right, Santander -1 in right, Vladdy -1, and Gimenez -1.
Yeah, I'm not sure I understand that, but it's also a 4 game sample size, so I don't think I have much understanding to need to do.
Gimenez also was the only player charged with an error this weekend, so I guess that
That,
probably plays into it. But
yeah. To be
that's
fair though, I mean, like I don't recall the error offhand. I would imagine if it's a fielding error, I don't know if it was it a throwing error
I
because
think
if
it
it's
was
a
a
field,
throw.
okay. Because if it's a fielding error, then it might just be a ball that he's gonna get to, no one else will. But I don't know. A lot of baseball played this weekend. Just
Um,
getting back in the groove.
God, we are so defense pilled. We just started a conversation about offense and ended with a conversation about defense.
We're watching
Um,
the Mark Shapiro Blue Jays does to an MF.
yeah, yeah. Who else, I mean, notable stood out to you? I think obviously Alan Roden gets his first career hit. I think overall the opening weekend for him like not great. Like the hit was there. He worked one walk, and then other than that, was a little bit quiet. But he didn't strike out. I thought he worked some pretty decent at bats. So, good sign there. You know what, they obviously gave him the green light, the playing time of kind of what you were hoping for from him. But, you got anything on Roden, or was there anybody else that stood out to you?
Just in general, I'll touch on Roden a little more. Just happy for him to get a shot at the big leagues. Happy that he got the opening day start. I think that's really cool of them to do. I The word out there, and we kind of heard this even last week, like wouldn't be shocking if he had to make another pit stop in AAA. Doesn't have much else to prove there, but definitely a possibility. But for what it's worth, like this is kind of what you're expecting from him. The bat to ball stuff is going to be there. He's not necessarily going to tap into the power immediately, but this is a guy that's capable defensively. Showed some, if I recall correctly, don't recall who put this out there on Twitter, but flashed like a 90th percentile sprint speed at one point, like toolsy, sneaky
Yeah.
toolsy. Um, just feels like a guy that with some seasoning, with some time, with some adjustments, will be just fine.
George Springer. Where are we at?
Um,
George Springer, 170 WRC plus,
we
364 average.
we discussed in the group chat. You sent the first weekend WRC plus leaderboard for the Blue Jays, and then follow that up a moment later with this is a George Springer screenshot. And the back and forth was basically, do you buy it? No. Am I surprised? No. Um, So, needless to say, I think it's nice that George Springer was able to contribute. I'm expecting uh, nothing close to this kind of
Did you
production.
see the swing speed though?
Uh, I
He
imagine if you're bringing
ripped
it up,
off
he's
ripped
up there.
off like an 80-mile-per-hour swing.
That's compelling. That's interesting.
So I think he's swinging
Um,
harder, which,
well,
would probably make sense with him sliding down in the order.
yeah. I guess for that, it's more of a power approach than contact approach, just in terms of with him. Obviously, he walks at an okay clip, like not an elite clip or anything. But I guess as a leadoff guy, he's up there kind of more as an on base guy, obviously. And then lower in the lineup, maybe he's taken, big daddy hacks. So I guess that's compelling. He wasn't anywhere in that category, at least to start last year, if I recall correctly.
No.
I mean, when the data came out, he was trending in the right direction, but certainly was in the low 70s for much of the early season. So to flash an 80, to pop an 80 is like it's a notable figure.
Yeah. It's definitely interesting. I think when you look at, it's funny because we're dealing with such small sample sizes here when we're looking at these numbers. So obviously it all has to be taken with a grain of salt. But like, I mean, the quality of contact numbers were good from the first weekend. The strike, like he struck out, um, a little bit higher of a rate than he did last year. But again, it's 4 games. It's 13 plate appearances. So it's kind of tough to really read into it. But I mean, for a guy who had such a bad spring, like I think that you couldn't have asked for like a better opening weekend.
Like perfect. Well, again, it just kind of you needed him to take something positive from either spring training or early in the season. Obviously, hits that bomb late in spring, which was huge for him. And hopefully, there's some confidence building. It's a veteran. Like, this is not the same situation as an Alan Roden looking for confidence, but he's human nonetheless. And you kind of figure that, you get Springer maybe feeling a little better about himself. He's kicked a little bit down the lineup. He's kind of maybe in a little bit lower in terms of a leverage spot, if that's what you want to use the phrase leverage in terms of batting order. But you get him going, and it just makes the whole lineup a little bit longer, a little bit better, right? Because again, like I kind of said off the top, this team still doesn't really mash. But George Springer being an effective player, like understated important part
Yeah.
um, of the Blue Jays being competitive. Him and Bo and Vladdy, that triumvirate needs to be effective.
Glad you brought up Vladdy because he also had an interesting week. Like the strikeouts were very high. I believe he's like in the top 15-ish in baseball for strikeouts to begin the year, which is a little unlike him for sure. Like obviously the walks were there. I'm not again not super concerned because it's 4 games. Um, but I mean overall, like I mean I think there's the infamous Yennier Cano at bat at this point where you see the game day
Yeah, I mean, I
screenshot.
was gonna bring that up. I don't know if that's of concern. Like that, there was that one swing where it was like the slider down and away, and he kind of like was handcuffed. Like it was an ugly, ugly, ugly swing. Um, Maybe the ugliest of his career by certain metrics. Like not great. Um, do I dare say concerned? Because I mean, Vladdy gets out to these slow starts. Even last year, it took until
Yeah.
the second half for him to turn it on. If the Jays are close to a deal, which there's whispers of, like that's a little frightening if you're gonna have to deal with him rocking a 600 OPS every April.
Yeah, like if you want to say overreaction, then like maybe. But like I'm not really that concerned. Like just kind of looking at it, like he didn't see a lot of pitches in the zone. Like he was 46% of all the pitches he saw were strikes, and he swung. He didn't really swing all that much this weekend. Like lowest swing rate of his, it would be like by far the lowest rate of his career. Um, but yeah, it is interesting that we see him, I think, push a little bit too hard sometimes when he's trying to be too much, right? And I wonder, there have been the whispers, like we've heard them of people being like, well, he only really took off after the Jays season was kind of over last year. And I think you look at 2021 at this point, that's 4 years ago, right? And he's never been great in the playoffs. Um, so, like, how good is he when the pressure is on? Because it seems like he tries to do a little bit too much, right? And when that pressure is eased, he just kind of lets himself be. And when he just lets himself be, he's obviously a great, great, great hitter. Um, so we'll kind of see how that plays out. I don't buy into that narrative personally that he's only been good when games don't matter. It's kind of tough to really evaluate that anyways. But we'll see. Like again, not really concerned. I think we'll see him probably hit a home run this week against Washington, and then all will be right in the world.
Yeah, I'd say you've probably nailed it. Maybe a little bit more concerned than you are for that, just because you know me, I love a good narrative, but less imminently concerned, still a little bit concerned.
Yeah, hey, it's
Listen,
tough. It's tough to draw anything from four
it could
games.
be it could be worse. He could be having a Rafael Devers type start. It could be a lot worse.
That's tough. That is tough what's going on there. Yeah, that's like what was it? 0 for 16 with 12 Ks?
Yeah, he's for a guy with a lot of like Vladdy comps and those two get compared to each other a lot, the third base thing, the DH thing, whatever, you know, could always be worse.
It could always be worse. There's Devers, there's Dylan Cruz is 0 for 11 with 8 Ks as well. Like there's
Uh,
there's worse places to be at than what Vladdy did this weekend. And you know what I mean? Having 4 bad games, whatever. It's
you
it's
live, you live with it. You
it's
live with
fun.
it.
Quick rip through the rest of the lineup. Like Will Wagner looked good, I thought. Couple extra base hits. Struck out a little bit, but you know what? Like, I mean, again, 4 games, not super concerned. Happy with Wagner. You have any Wagner thoughts?
Interested in how they use him.
You know what?
Something to keep an eye on.
Here's actually something that surprised me, and this obviously goes against generally the sentiment that I had early in the year is that Wagner got 2 of the starts at third base, and Ernie Clement only got 2.
Yeah, interesting.
Because I thought
Um,
that Ernie was going to get, like probably like a 75% share there.
Yeah, I'm interested to see how that unfolds. Um,
Wagner
Ernie,
made that great play at second base
yeah,
or
like
at third.
he's at third, he made that really good play. Like he's not going to be as good a defender as
But
Clement. Like
if he,
if
shows that
he's
he can play there, like he probably ends
if
up,
he's 70% of Ernie defensively
yeah,
and
the
20% better of a hitter,
the
that's
job says.
yeah.
Yeah.
Like Ernie doesn't have a hammer lock on that spot, which is interesting because I don't know if that's what I believed going into the year. Like same with you.
Yeah. Obviously my bold prediction of him like winning the Gold Glove and being a top
Could be
three
in
third
could be in
baseman,
some
that's
trouble.
yeah, we might be in danger there. Um Davis Schneider, Miles Straw, Santander, Kirk, any of those guys,
Um,
any alarm bells there? I know they're all
no,
kind of towards the
Kirk.
bottom of like
Yeah, I
offensive
mean,
production.
Kirk had a tough go of it. It's kind of what he does, but it's also just it's historically, I feel like for the Jays, catchers take a little longer to get moving.
Yeah.
We'll see. It'll be something worth monitoring as, April progresses. Maybe check back on check
Over you want an overreaction? Give Tyler Heineman the starting catcher job.
maybe check in with me on April 17th and we'll see how I'm feeling.
Yeah. 4 games, not super concerned about any of those guys.
Yeah, yeah, I'd say that's about right. I think the lesson to be learned here is everyone that's doing well, it's sustainable, and everyone that's
Yes,
doing poorly, it's
it's
early.
gonna fix, right? Yeah. Um, yeah, was there anything like usage wise? I think the Wagner Ernie thing is notable. I think like we talked about Roden, kind of his playing time. Schneider, um, not really getting much. He got 4 plate appearances. Like any of those things kind of stand out to you as far as like a usage standpoint to start?
Not enormous, but a little surprised they went so Springer heavy in center over like Miles
Yeah,
Straw.
I agree with that
Um,
because they bring in Lucas and Straw, and it feels
that's
like that's
yeah.
to platoon kind of in center, and obviously Springer gets a bit of time there.
Yeah, that I thought was a little interesting. I don't think it's necessarily something to read into because once Varsho comes back, that
Yeah.
discussion's pretty much over. But maybe they're not as locked in to Miles Straw or Nathan Lucas as we thought they might have been.
Yeah. We'll see. It'll be interesting. Obviously, you know what we head into this week, 3 games against the Nationals. Nationals, fun team, not really expecting them to be, they're probably like the worst team that the Jays have to face this month, which is less than ideal, but it'll be cool to see Michael Soroka start tonight for Washington, obviously Calgary's own, getting his Nationals debut, and so hopefully he throws well, and then the Jays can like add on against the bullpen or something like that.
That sounds like something I could get behind.
What are your expectations for the week? Like, what are you specifically watching for
Yeah, I think this week it's just the sticks. I think I want to see some power.
Vlad?
I want to see some of the guys, even Santander to an extent. Um, he did, I believe, have a double in there, or at least one. I think he did hit
He
for a little
he hit
power.
a couple balls off the wall, but I think
Yeah,
that they may have ended up being singles. Um, he yeah, he had 3 hits, no doubles, and I
no
think two of
doubles.
two of them were singles off the
They
wall.
that's
So
listen, at the end of the day, I just think that this team is going to need obviously him, but just in general, they're going to need some pop. You're not going to win a lot of series getting out homer 10-3.
yeah,
So nevertheless tying them. So they're going to need to show some pop, but I mean, they're going to have some opportunities to do so. I mean, the Nationals not a good baseball team. There'll be opportunities there.
let's do a
Unless
quick.
you're facing Mackenzie Gore.
Oh yeah, that game, him and Gossman, that's gonna be a fun one to
That's a fun one.
replay.
That's an exciting one.
Um, let's do a quick around the league because or at least around the division because obviously the Orioles you get to see them. What changed for you this weekend as far as what your expectations are within the division?
Higher on the Yankees than I was maybe a week
That's
ago, which is
that's
probably the most obvious answer there.
yeah.
Um, not much changes. I think, the Red Sox were basically about what I expected from the Red Sox. Same with kind of the Rays. Um, how much those torpedo bats are actually a story. You and I discussed this before we hit the record button. Not sure. But nevertheless, the Bronx Bombers are maybe still the Bronx Bombers, which I don't think I was expecting sans Cole, sans Soto.
Yeah, I think the one thing to me is like watching some of those games, you're kind of like, oh, right, that is Aaron Judge. Like
Yeah.
this dude is terrifying.
Yeah,
And
he's
every time he's in the box, like that is a scary, scary dude.
yeah.
And you know what's funny is like I thought that they were going to be less power, a little bit more well-rounded, but in the game where they hit the 9 home runs, they made 5 errors. And I'm
Yeah,
like,
this is the same Yankees team. It's
I
not the
thought,
same.
yeah.
It's not the same. Maybe over a longer sample. If you're talking like, if we're talking April all the way to, July, over that larger sample, you're going to deal with obviously um, more circumstances where, that poor defense is going to haunt them. But, they're going to slug still.
Yeah.
But I don't think that was ever really so much in question as much as if they were going to be able to slug enough to protect what is a bit of a weak rotation.
Yeah, it's like Freed didn't look great, which is going to be a big deal for them, and obviously the rest of those guys are not Garrett Cole, so interesting there. And then the Red Sox, obviously the offense looked bad, but Christian Campbell looked good. They'll be interesting story to follow. Like they're kind of like this wild card team, I think, for what the division is going to play out to be.
Them and the Jays will be very, very closely linked to this year, I think.
Yeah, well, you got any other opening weekend takes? Any other opening
Baseball's
weekend
back.
over?
That's my take. Baseball's back. Let's go.
Finally, it was so long. It's like so great to have actual games to talk about, even if it is just four, and we're sitting here trying to, predict what's going to happen 4 months from now based on 3 games, 4 games. So, love the sport, man. Love the
Yeah.
sport.
Anyways, like I said, looking forward to the record-setting home run season that Andres Gimenez is on pace for.
Yeah, the Blue Jays record, Andres Gimenez, and then future starting catcher Tyler Heineman, and
Oh,
future closer Yariel Rodriguez.
exactly.
All right, well, that is going to do it for us here today at the Bird's Eye View Podcast. Make sure to hit the subscribe and like buttons if you're watching on YouTube. You can find us there at the Bird's Eye View Pod. If you're listening along on the podcast provider of your choice, make sure to drop a follow and review. You can follow us all on Twitter. I'm at Worden_Zach. Jori is at Jori Negin-Shecter, and the pod is at BEV_pod. Thanks so much for listening and enjoy the games.